So in this video, I'm going to talk about how the image scroller pretty much meets all the requirements you would need to do the create task. So first off, if you didn't do the image scroller, hopefully everyone did, just really quickly, basically what it does when I run it is if you press next, it's going to go through these pictures. Okay, so 3 things I put on here. If you press last, it would go through these pictures. I'm going to pause the video and get a URL. I forgot to do that. I'll show you how. So if I paste another URL, it's going to add an item. So now I have 3 of 4 here, whereas I used to have 3 of 3, and then bumped over the basketball picture. And then going back, we see if we go past the 1, it goes back to 4. We go to the 4, it goes back to 1. So that's the basic functionality. So that I talked through it. You don't have to talk through it, but that could be an example of a video. Mine also works with the key presses if you got that part to work. I know some of you did. So first off, the way that this program, App Lab, the lesson 13 and 14 lead you through it is very incremental. They have you build the one piece and then build the next piece and then build the next piece. In terms of the iterative process, I don't think many of you could just kind of go through this and not make mistakes. Like you might have to fix stuff. When we talk about opportunities, you could think of lesson 13 where they had text, right? It just said the names of things. And then an opportunity was to add an image instead. So that's an example of an opportunity. Whether or not you kind of make up the fact that you used an opportunity, I mean, try to come up with a real opportunity, but that idea of expanding your program or making it have different functionality is an opportunity. So moving on to the algorithms, I have a bunch of algorithms in here. Any of these 3 functions, I mean, this is not really enough. Actually, I do have some mathematical concepts. I do have index plus 1 in here. So technically that has a mathematical piece to it. These 2 definitely do. If I was picking a bigger algorithm to work from, I don't quite have what I'm looking for here, but this is close. So when I press the next button, this is my algorithm, it's going to scroll forward and update the text. So we do have 2 algorithms, the scroll forward function and the update text function in this algorithm, which is what happens when I click the next button. Let's just move some code around. I could have this whole chunk as an algorithm, the next button and the last button. Basically, that's the functionality of these 2 buttons. That's, a couple pieces together for an algorithm, and then maybe that would be a little bit more, or maybe I'd want to include an add button, and I can say this algorithm is pressing the 3 different buttons on my screen. Okay, it's fine to have a little bit of a longer algorithm there in terms of multiple on events. So if I wanted to talk about sub-algorithms, maybe I'd choose scroll forward. And this would be a good one to describe because I have an if-then, I have, Boolean, checking to see if something's true. I have incrementing. So I would talk about how I basically, when I press the next button, the index equals index plus 1 moves the index forward. It moves 1 picture forward with the goal of moving 1 picture forward, and then also changing this number up here to be 1 further. And it does that by updating the index, which is, we'll see when we display text, we'll look at that. Here, basically, if the index gets to the last index, which is 1 less than the length of the list, it's going to bring it back to the other end of the index, which would be 0. It will display 1 because of the way the update text is set. You really only have to get deeply into one of your sub-algorithms as long as you explain this whole algorithm here. We're going to say it's all these 3. Okay. So if I did explain the update text, though, basically it's going to change the image to whatever index it's on, which was changed in the scroll forward algorithm with the index equals index plus 1, or setting it back to 0. The set text, we're setting the text of this label right here, basically number of items. Okay. Label is the label. We're doing index plus 1 because it's when it's on index 0, we're really at item 1, and so on. And then favorite length, that's going to measure the length of the list and put that, in this case, it's 4 right now. the whole algorithm as a whole, basically, part of this program is to move back and forth through the items. I'm going to change my mind. I'd probably just do these two. So basically, that's important for the program because not only are we keeping track of pictures of things that are our favorite, we are trying to view them. So the functionality of it is to view the different pictures by scrolling through them using the list. Not perfect, but that's kind of the idea. The whole algorithm, name your two sub-algorithms, really get into what one of the two sub-algorithms does, and make sure you explain the functionality of the algorithm in the overall program. Make sure at some point you highlight those mathematical or logical concepts. So now I'm going to move over to the abstraction. I probably would pick one of these scroll forward or scroll backwards as abstraction. I'm going to do two types of abstraction. So I'm going to say that I use this function scroll forward as my abstraction. I made the function, okay, well, with the lesson, but basically the idea is you made that function. It's not an event handler or something that was already built into the program. The way this manages complexity is it simplifies the calling of these functions, so you can see when you do the next button, it scrolls forward. You don't have to see all the details. You just know you're going forward. A second way it manages complexity is when I press the right button, I'm also scrolling forward. So I'm cutting down on repeated code, which also manages the complexity, since either a right key press, oops, didn't mean to put that there, a right key press, or the next button. Right now I'm doing a right key press, right now I'm doing the next button. Both of those things scroll forward through the text. Another type of abstraction I could talk about is my favorite list, which holds all of these different images in it. It allows, with the list, it allows for easier scrolling through those images. If I set maybe each of these equal to a variable, and then whatever, for new ones, I'd have to create new variables. I'd have to do var, equals the input, var a or w, whatever variable I wanted to use. And then I'd also, each time I scrolled forward, instead of saying, or actually in this set image, I couldn't talk about favorite index. I'd have to actually change it to display a new variable, which would be way more complex than what I have with the list, because the list manages the complexity of the program. So hopefully that kind of helps. I know it's not written, but just thinking about different ways you can take a program. I don't think this is that complex of a program. As I said, the only thing I think it might need was a little bit more so that your algorithm isn't just two sub-algorithms. There's some other stuff going on in there. Okay, you could handle that by maybe taking these two as an algorithm together. Those two buttons are doing that part together. As I said, you can take a bigger algorithm to kind of, fill in those two sub-algorithms.